Folks, welcome to my review of the Suzuki V-Strom 1050. If you're in the market for a new V-Strom 1050, then please hear me out before you take the plunge. If you already own a Suzuki 1050, congratulations, you have a great bike, and I don't wish to demean your purchase, but again, hear me out. As a 10-year owner of a pristine one-owner 2014 V-Strom 1000 and creator of one of the most watched V-Strom reviews online, you might be surprised to learn that I wouldn't buy a 2025 V-Strom 1050. I love my V-Strom 1000 for its comfort, safety, reliability, and excellent build quality. It handles daily commuting, two-up moto camping and touring, and even salty Vancouver Island winters with barely a mark. It does it easily, it does it comfortably, and it does it reliably. With proper maintenance, a Suzuki V-Strom 1000 engine can reliably run for well over 200,000 miles, and some riders have reported putting more than 400,000 miles on their engines. The V-Strom's long-lasting durability is due to its robust, under-stressed engine, which was designed for touring rather than high performance. And I know the 2025-26 V-Strom 1050 is equally well made, but unless your heart is set on it, I still wouldn't recommend buying the V-Strom 1050. Perhaps that's surprising given both my positive experience with my V-Strom 1000 and Suzuki's reputation for value for money. In this video, I'll tell you why the V-Strom 1050 isn't worth buying and reveal two better value alternatives that deliver a similar, or arguably in one case, a better riding experience. But first, before we continue, please like and subscribe the video and watch it through to the end, because that's really all the YouTube algorithm worries about, where I will give you some hints about alternatives to the V-Strom 1050 that make sense. Okay, on with the video. Just for reference, let's start by comparing the V-Strom 1050DE with the previous model, the 2014 to 2019 Suzuki V-Strom 1000, to see what you're getting for nearly twice the cost. That's right, I'd argue Suzuki's pricing isn't the bargain it once was. I bought my 2014 V-Strom 1000 brand new for $9,999 Canadian dollars. Today, the base 1050 starts at $18,349 Canadian, or $15,409 US dollars, and a similarly equipped model to mine runs at nearly $21,759 Canadian, and all of those prices are before dealer prep and taxes, etc. And there's another elephant sitting quietly in the room. The bike's geometry, as in the chassis, the rake and trail, and the swing arm are identical to the previous generation. Something Suzuki would prefer you really didn't know. These two bikes may have different names, but they are essentially the same bike. Let me explain. The engine, 1037cc's, identical to the last one. The Suzuki V-Strom 1000 and the 1050 share exactly the same 1037cc liquid-cooled 90-degree V-twin engine and the same overall chassis layout, but the 1050 introduces several key changes in performance that aren't necessarily for the better. The 1000 produces around 100 horsepower at 8,000 RPM, and 103 Nm of torque at 4,000 RPM, while the 1050 modestly increases output to about 107 horsepower, but at 500 RPM higher in the rev range, and decreases torque to 100 Nm at 6,000 RPM, which is 2,000 RPM higher than the 1000cc version. The 1050's engine tuning shifts the torque peak higher, giving it a slightly more revvy feel to the engine, but it lacks the 1000's real-world grunt in the lower rev range, as I found on my test ride of the 1050 a few years ago. To put it bluntly, the lighter 1000 produces almost the equivalent power and more torque lower down in the rev range, right where you really need it. There's no need to shift down or rev high to access the gobs of torque on the 1000cc bike. They're right there, at 4,000 RPM, which, in 6th gear, is about 110 kilometers an hour, or nearly 70 miles an hour. Does it get any more convenient than that? Perhaps you could argue the 1050 delivers its power in a slightly more exciting, revvy manner.
Yeah, way more pep over 5.
Apparently the 1050 also features a revised 6-speed transmission, while both have an assist and slipper clutch. But I found no difference in feel or real-world application there when I rode the 1050 compared with my 1000. Again, the chassis and suspension geometry between the two bikes remain exactly the same, with both bikes using a twin-spar aluminium or aluminum frame with the same wheelbase and 19-inch front and 17-inch rear wheel sizes. Suspension travel is identical, and while Suzuki's advertising jargon will tell you the 1050 benefits from refined damping and presettings for improved stability and comfort, but again, I found no discernible difference, with the 1000 being exceptionally comfortable, both solo and touring, 2-up with luggage. On the downside, wet weight on the 1050 actually increases from 228 kilograms on the 1000 to around 236 kilograms on the 1050, and the seat height on the 1050 is 5 mil higher. Both bikes handle identically on road, while the Takiko braking systems are identical with dual front discs and a single rear disc, and ergonomics remain comfortable for touring on both bikes. Apart from cosmetics and weight then, the only significant difference between the 1000 and the 1050 is electronics and rider aids, where the 1050 modernizes slightly. It incorporates ride-by-wire throttle for smoother, more precise control apparently. While the 1000 has 3 levels of traction control and ABS, it has no rider modes. The 1050 features 3 rider modes, lean-sensitive traction and ABS, LED lighting, updated instrumentation, albeit with a 5-inch TFT screen.
The bike has 3 riding modes. It's very easy to use. You've got the same switchgear as the last one. Here's the mode button. Here's the selector. So if I press mode, which I've already done, you can see it shows me I'm in A. Okay, A is the most responsive throttle that you can get on the engine mapping. Then if you cycle down, you can go to B, which is the middle of the road, the everyday riding, commuting. And apparently C is really good for in the city or wet, where you don't want it to be too responsive. You're starting and stopping in traffic, merging, or lanes splitting. Any of those things, C works for that. I'm going to put it back in A.
These updates together with cruise control give the 1050 its only real edge over the 1000, making it more customizable and a long tour friendly bike with that cruise control. However, the 1000 isn't without its advantages either. Given it doesn't need to rev as it makes its real-world torque significantly lower in the rev range, it has better fuel economy, giving it better range as the fuel tanks are identical on both bikes. And while OEM stock screens suffer horribly on both bikes from buffet and will need to be replaced for riders over 5'10", once the height of the V-Strom 1000 screen is set with tools, the tilt can be adjusted on the fly. And while the 1050 screen height doesn't need tools to be adjusted, you do have to stop, get off, walk to the front of the bike to access a lever to raise and lower the screen, while there is no tilt setting at all on the 1050.
The windshield is adjustable, but you have to stop to do it. I had it on full up. I'll let you know what it's like.
I got rid of my stock screen and replaced it with a GV Airflow, which has height adjustment that can change on the fly, like the tilt. This allows for a perfectly customized Airstream that has led to 45,000 kilometers of buffet-free riding on my 1000cc. So to summarize this section, the bikes are almost identical, with the 1050 having the nod in electronics and dashboard departments, and the 1000 having more torque on tap lower in the rev range, a more adjustable screen, better fuel economy and fuel range, and it's slightly lighter. And that's almost it between the two bikes. Except, of course, it isn't. The fact is, buying a new V-Strom 1050 is not good value for money when you know essentially it's a V-Strom 1000 and that a good used low mileage V-Strom 1000 can be had for incredibly reasonable prices with all sorts of aftermarket extras included. And when I say reasonable, I'm talking half the price or less than a new 1050. Take this local specimen with 30,000 kilometers or 20,000 miles, which is nothing for a V-Strom, with a carbon Yoshimura exhaust, crash bars, skid plate, luggage, handguards, chain guard, rad guard, aftermarket mirrors, asking, I say asking, $7,500 Canadian. And it's been listed for 7 weeks at this point. Try speccing that lot on a 1050 and you'll be looking over $24,000 Canadian before dealer prep and taxes. But let's not stop at just one example. Let's try another. Here's a 2019 V-Strom 1000 with only 12,000 kilometers or 8,000 miles barely run in. And they're only asking 9,200 Canadian. Has spoked wheels, a GV screen and crash bars. This one has been listed for 14 weeks. Are you starting to get my drift here? Or this more extreme example, granted, of a 2018 V-Strom 1000 with 122,000 kilometers or 70,000 miles for 4,350 Canadian. This one has been listed for 17 weeks. That's what they're asking. But for whatever reason, the average motorcycle rider hasn't clued in to what an amazing bike and indeed value for money a 2014 to 2019 V-Strom 1000 is. These are priced at less than half the price of the base 1050, which starts, as I said earlier, at 18,349 Canadian dollars. And that is essentially why I wouldn't buy a new V-Strom 1050. Not a chance. Because in practical terms, the 1000 remains a very strong choice for riders seeking low-end torque, a simpler system, lighter weight, and lower purchase or maintenance cost. It is well suited to road touring, highway cruising, and occasionally mixed road use. The 1050 does represent minor evolutionary upgrades over the 1000, while the older model remains capable and a value-conscious alternative. The 1050, to put it bluntly, is a rip-off. While my bike is a V-Strom Virgin at 46,000 kilometers, I have occasionally allowed my mind to wander. But after riding the 1050 and watching the prices go north of $20,000 Canadian, I realize that I'm just not interested in spending that for cruise control, a TFT screen, and a lean-sensitive IMU while losing the grunty drivability of my bike. So what are my alternatives? Well, heaven forbid if I were to crash my V-Strom 1000 or something were to go catastrophically wrong with it, which as we know is highly unlikely, then I would replace it with another V-Strom 1000. That would be my first alternative. If I were tempted to cough up $20,000 Canadian, then rather than a V-Strom 1050, I'd go with a Moto Guzzi Stelvio, which truly offers more character and charisma, all the tech, more performance, with the same grunty torque, long travel suspension, and, arguably, more panache. And right now, I can get one for significantly less than a V-Strom 1050. It's a truly modern iteration of what the V-Strom could or arguably should be for the money. You see, adding different plastics, a screen, an ECU reflash, cruise control, and 3 rider modes shouldn't double the price over a previous model. Suzuki, I'm afraid, is overpricing the V-Strom 1050, and that, above all other reasons, is why I wouldn't buy one. If you're intent on buying one new, then before you do, ride a good used V-Strom 1000. Then I urge you to watch this review of the Moto Guzzi Stelvio by Alex Rawlings of the Classic Bike channel, and indeed his own Motor Filmer and Good Times Motorbike channel. I will link the video in the notes below. But what about you? Perhaps you are a V-Strom 1000 owner and you are looking at the 1050. Give me your reasons for moving on to that bike and not something different, like a Stelvio, or buying another 1000. What alternatives do you see out there instead of upgrading to a 1050 from your V-Strom 1000? Perhaps the Stelvio is not for you. And finally, if you own a 1050, I'm a big boy. You can tell me what you think. Let me know the positives, the negatives, and parts you might agree or disagree with from this video. Thanks very much. Don't forget to comment below, and I'll see you all in the next one.